Good day, and welcome to CF Media's Virtual Training Week for the session on how systems integrators can help manufacturers in their digital transformation journeys. We'll be joined by Jose Rivera, CEO of the Control Systems Integrators Association. I'm Kevin Parker, an editor with CFE Media and Technology. Following our presentation, be sure and stay tuned for a live Q&A on Zoom that will begin at 12:45 p.m. Central. Today's presentation can provide continuing education credits. CFE Media has met the standards and requirements of the Registered Continuing Education Program. Credit earned on completion of this program will be reported to RECEP at recep.net. A certificate of completion will be available for each participant to download upon successful completion of a test at the end of the presentation. As such, it does not include content that may be deemed or construed to be an approval or endorsement by RECEP. This virtual class session is designed for technicians, engineers, and managers who want to better understand how to deploy the system integrator services that have proved so key to digital transformation efforts among today's automation and IT-driven manufacturers. The webinar will focus on the markets, opportunities, issues, and technologies involved. You see before you 4 bullet points containing the learning objectives for today's session. Here are some tips to help you get the most from today's webcast. Attendees are eligible for 1 credit for this event, airing on October 5th, 2020, and is categorized within the core technical, health, and safety categories for RECEP. This event is a live educational session presented on October 5th, 2020, and on demand afterward. I'd now like to introduce today's speaker, Jose Rivera, CEO of the Control Systems Integrators Association. Jose has led a successful global career in the automation industry, working in 6 countries, most often in regional or global roles. Since March 2015, he has been the CEO of the Control System Integrators Association. In this position, he has worked to advance the systems integration industry by expanding the adoption of the CSIA best practices and by helping members recognize emerging trends and pursue associated business development opportunities. CSIA best practices helps independent systems integrators build better companies. Jose holds an MBA from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, and master's and bachelor's degrees in electrical engineering from the University of Costa Rica. He is fluent in Spanish, English, German, and at a basic level in French. Jose, thanks for joining us for today's session. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be part of this event of CFE Media. I will be presenting about achieving digital transformation with system integrators. Let me share the agenda with you. I will share a little bit about CSIA. Who are we and what do we do? Then we'll talk about digital transformation, or some refer to it as Industry 4.0. I will go over some implementation challenges and recommendations, and we'll bring it all together in the summary slide. So let's start here. CSIA. We are an association of control system integrators. We are the Control System Integrators Association, and we were founded in 1994 as a not-for-profit global trade association to advance the industry of control system integration. We have over 500 members in 40 countries, and we help system integrators improve their business skills, provide a forum to share industry expertise, and promote the benefits of hiring a certified system integrator. We deliver on webinars, conferences, training to keep system integrators abreast of emerging trends, challenges, and opportunities. And we also provide the Industrial Automation Exchange, which helps connect manufacturers with system integrators and industry suppliers. of the things that we offer specific to system integrators are programs like this insurance program or this legal plan. If you're a system integrator and you need to obtain insurance, I guarantee you that you'll spend at least 1 week trying to explain to your insurance broker or your lawyer about what a system integrator is and what do they do. System integrator, CSIA has been providing the system integrator specific programs for years, so we don't have to ask those basic questions. But here's a basic question. What is a system integrator? So this question was asked to me when I was presenting at an industrial automation event, and I was a little bit surprised, but I think that instead of defining the system integrator, let's go into the categories of delivering system integration, and I'm talking industrial system integration. The first category are the independent system integrators. These are the companies that have system integration at their core and represents a big part of who they are and what they do. They may have other businesses like electrical construction, etc., but this is the category that we call independent system integrators. They represent the majority of the system integrators within CSIA. The next group are the machine builders. So these are companies that produce machines, and these machines require automation. And then when the machines are installed at the end user sites, they need then connection or integration into the larger systems, IT systems of the manufacturer. One example of these machine builders could be Krones. They're a big food and beverage production and packaging line manufacturer. They have a system integration division that integrates these lines into, let's say, soda manufacturer, soda bottler, or like a juice manufacturer. I mentioned Krones because a few years ago, they acquired a system integrator to accelerate their growth in the United States, and that system integrator is a certified system integrator from CSIA. Another example that I have here for machine builders could be automated test rig manufacturers. So for example, for the automotive industry, you need to provide testing for every single component. So you can imagine the speed of testing that is required for every single component. So this company, Nofts, member of CSIA, they have been delivering these machines. So they designed the mechanical part, but they also do the automation. So these machine builders are also eligible for CSIA membership, and we have a few of them. Automation equipment vendor. This is the category of those companies that provide automation equipment, like a Rockwell, like a Siemens, Schneider Electric, etc., etc. Some of these companies have acquired system integration companies to augment their existing system integration teams when they have to develop full solutions when their customers are demanding that. These are also members of CSIA. Here's the last category, end users. They're not eligible for CSIA membership, but this is also a group that has been going down because more and more of the end users who used to have a system integration team have decided to convert that system integration team more as an orchestrator of projects. So system integration projects included. You have seen that happening every time there's a little bit of pressure. And so there's this group within end users, they can do, in some companies they retain it. But in general, this trend has been towards reduction of the system integration done by end users and more of a coordination of projects. So now let's go into digital transformation, the topic of this presentation. This definition, I think, does a very good job at defining what digital transformation is. The transformation of industrial products, operations, value chains, and aftermarket services that are enabled through the augmentation of people and knowledge through the expanded use of sensors, data, and analytics. The reason I like this definition by ARC this much is that it's not just about technology. It is also not one that shares a vision of lights out manufacturing. To the contrary, it is using all these technologies and all these processes to empower the people to be able to do their job better. And it's also not just focusing just on the manufacturing, it goes way back to the value chains, aftermarket services, etc., etc. So it's a relatively short definition. I really like it. I think it does a very good job. Here's a diagram that I got from the Singapore Smart Industry Readiness Index from the Economic Development Board out of Singapore. This, by the way, you can visit their site. You can download this document, white paper that they have on the Smart Industry Readiness Index. It's an excellent document. So this is a very good visual interpretation of what this Industry 4.0 or this digital transformation that we're talking about, what it's all about. You see the circle around the manufacturing plant. Here is where the traditional automation used to take place. And this is where you would have all the systems dealing with the automation of machines, production lines, all these different things. This is referred to as Industry 3.0. What you see on the horizontal axis is how it starts with the raw materials going to suppliers, inbound logistics, and then after the manufacturing goes into the outbound logistics, sales and marketing, and aftermarket services. So traditionally, the scope was the circle that we see here, in particular for the industrial automation folks. Now, it is important to know the full extent. If you are, for example, a refiner, knowing your fleet of ships bringing in oil, where they are, when they're about to arrive, the quality or the specifics of the oil that they're bringing, all of that is vital information. These are systems that are already and had already been in place. But this approach is now being extended to many more other industries that didn't have the means of doing that, because technology is easier to integrate than it was in the past. One other thing that I like from the Singapore Smart Industry Readiness Index that I like a lot is the fact that it breaks it up. It breaks it up into three main buckets of process, technology, and organization. So contrary to some people that think that Industry 4.0 it's just a technology game, they argue that this is just 1/3 of the full story. You start with the process, and it deals with the ability to integrate vertically and horizontally. They're referring to the way to exchange data between IT and OT, between machines. They also talk about how you're designing your entire manufacturing process or whatever process it is that you're dealing with at your plant. On the technology side, automation is an important part, but automation by itself is not good enough. You require connectivity, and then you also need to be able to get that data out and apply intelligence to make the most out of it. Then you'll have organization, and this is the part that a lot of people have some challenges with, but that ends up being the most difficult part of these projects because it deals with people, it deals with change management, and it deals about doing things in a way that you have not done before. And this is the part that is so key for all these digital transformation projects. First, to take a look at this holistically, and don't underestimate the part of organization, the need for change management, the need for leadership to get involved, etc. You see in this graph the little numbers there. These are all explained in this index that I'll say it again, you can download it, and it's pretty practical. I really liked it. It's not a CSIA document, I'm just referring to an external document that you can access yourself to. So let me share one example here in the outskirts of Chicago. It was part of an event. It was Royal Steel Supply and Coil Processing Plant, just outside of Chicago. It was presented a little bit like the plant of the future, and when I was there, I will admit to you that I was disappointed because none of the machines there was a modern machine. It was a one-line production, and after visiting and learning what they had done, I completely changed my opinion. So let me explain what this is. When you have manufacturers that need steel for the products that they're making, a lot of them will not warehouse themselves the steel. So they keep the coils at this type of a plant. They receive them, they warehouse them. And when they have the need, they reach out to this plant and place the order. And so basically they take the coils, they straighten the coils, they cut them, nothing complex, it's triangles and squares. They create the crate, put it on the shipping dock, and out it goes with another flatbed. That was it. And so this is what I saw when I visited. The machines were from the 80s or the 90s, still good machines, you know, don't get me wrong, and expensive machines, but these were not machines that were built for sharing data. So what they did and what they really wanted to do was to increase the throughput, which is not an atypical goal of a manufacturer. So what they decided to do was to integrate the existing machines into a comprehensive system, right? Such that they could follow all the way from order entry up to shipment and maybe fulfillment and quality feedback, etc. So the new equipment were not the machines. It was just peripheral equipment like sensors or gateways that were going into the machines to extract the data and then transmit wirelessly to a central point. They also placed terminals for the operators of the different stages on the production floor to provide them with up-to-date instructions and processes that were relevant to the operators. I did not mention, but in the past, they were all working out of paper. And if any of you have had an experience in a manufacturing plant, what gets printed out in the morning is no longer relevant by noon, right? Because there are always changes. And so one example was the person that was at the very end, the one that was building the crates. He would never follow what was on paper. He would just look at what's coming. He would go measure on the fly and create the crates for what he saw was coming, because he could not trust the paper. So this project at this plant eliminated the paper. And then they also placed monitors throughout the plant to monitor the utilization of the equipment, looking for opportunities to remove constraints. First, identify them, then to remove them, because they got into a continuous improvement drive. So this is how it looked afterwards. So it was a few operator terminals on the plant connected wirelessly to the office where they had the main system. And then the operators were able to go and see what they had to produce, were able to free up, their machines when it was the right time. One of the things that they shared with us was that the biggest machine, the most expensive one, was the straightening machine, and that one was the bottleneck for their process. So that became very obvious when they did this analysis, and they had 2 times 20-minute break in the morning and in the afternoon that they were shutting down the whole process. So then it was because the operator was entitled to his break, and that was fine. But what they ended up doing was to have a second person trained to not have to stop while the main operator was having a coffee break. So after I left this plant, and I tell you that I already had a change perspective, but I was asking myself, is this an example of digital transformation, Internet of Things? You know, and I think that I have many more questions to ask before I can say, yes, definitely it is. I definitely think this is a very solid start for sure. And I think that the majority of the opportunities here in the mature economies like the United States is going to look like that, because you have a lot of brownfield plants or a lot of systems that were bought still working. You know, they just need to get this data out such that you can deliver on the digital transformation. So questions are, what is their long-term vision? Where are the new bottlenecks? You know, if they had more money to invest, where would they do it? You know, would they have it very clear? Could they calculate the return on investment? What has been the impact on the organization, and what are additional process improvements? All of this, you know, are questions for continuous improvements, and technology here is a clear example of being an enabler and not the goal. So for me, manufacturers are getting to the point where they're understanding that digital transformation or Industry 4.0 is really necessary for survival and, how I call it, thrival, to thrive. It addresses critical challenges faced by the companies, higher manufacturing flexibility, increase OEE, and other things. Then a very important point is that organization and processes are just as critical as technology. So digital transformation is not a technology game. So that requires upper management endorsement with ongoing support and funding. It requires cross-functional teams to be set up, because very often these companies don't know really where they are in terms of their abilities. Some of them are a collection of very independent plans, and a project like this can bring a cohesive picture together. There are existing frameworks, so don't try to reinvent everything. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. It's very important to keep the company strategy closely tied to this project. Then strategy to deploy over an extended period of time. So be realistic. This is not a quick project and you're done. It is a transformation. So it's disruption, and this requires change management. So you will require the buy-in from the entire organization. So yes, executive sponsors to help you eliminate barriers, but the entire organization needs to buy into that. External experts are to be brought in when needed. You may not have the bandwidth with your own people, and so you may bring in for specific areas. And you may also not have the expertise. So implementation challenges and recommendations. So you've probably seen something similar about the world of silos, right? So you have organization with attitudes of this was not invented here, so we're not going to implement. We have current processes that we don't want to change. We may have tried this experiment in this part of the plant and it worked great, but it really was not designed to be ramped up. It may be that we have legacy proprietary systems that make it very hard to access the data. We may also be concerned about cybersecurity, and we may not have the competence. There are all these areas to be addressed, but the ones that I think are very important and that I will make a focus on will be data access, and the other one, lack of vision/roadmap. So here's an example of what I consider to be a very good roadmap. Trelleborg is a specialty chemicals company, multinational, headquartered out of Sweden, and they presented in 2019 here at the Automation Conference in Chicago. And I really thought this was a great presentation from an end user that had done a very good job. So we have had them present to our membership. And here's why I like this so much. First, they view this as a road map, right? So it's not meant to be done all with one single initiative. And it starts with the basics, as it should be. And the first one is called connected. And this refers to the need to connect the machines, the systems, to be able to extract the data and share the data, to be able to do all these important things that can be done with it. Second one is visible, which is like you have now the data, but you need to have this data available to the person that needs that data. So you remember in the case of the steel plant that I mentioned, or the steel warehousing, that the operators were having on their monitors what they needed to produce, and some of them were getting KPIs on the performance of their machines, having indicators like the dashboard in our cars, letting us know if there's something that needs to be done on the machine or not. So they have also these 3 additional steps on the roadmap about predictive, adaptive, and intelligent. And this is all to see how far they can go. They have one more level of detail, and it's this one. So where you have the red frame is where they are today, at least in 2019. So just getting connected was a huge challenge, because very often, and the people attending this presentation will probably attest to it, you have a patchwork of systems, of proprietary systems, legacy systems, and just getting this data out is a very big challenge. Then making the data visible. They mention an integrated platform, MES. It's not about the product, but that's what they're using. And it ends up being then the single source of truth, right? So like if you're accessing the same data, then you're all talking about the same thing when you're dealing with a specific project or problem. What you see then going forward, predictive, adaptive, intelligent, they have an idea of what they want. They may do some experiments, of what they want to do before they scale it up, but they have this figured out. What I am emphasizing is that the very first two steps may not look to a lot of people like digital transformation, because this is really about the basics. This is like the most important thing that you need to do before you're going into the other ones. But it is tough, but it's totally worth it, because that is the fundamental block to whatever you're going to be doing with the processing of that information. So I try to summarize it this way, in a very simple way. If you're able to extract the information from your plant, your systems, supply chains, all these different things, whether you bring it to the cloud, you leave it at the edge, you keep it on-prem, to me, all of that, it's a technical detail. But once you have the data, you're then able to apply algorithms, approaches to this data, and at the end, you're able to make better decisions, because you have better information. And this applies at multiple levels. So it's slightly different information, but it all is data. So you will have at the executive level to be able to calculate return on investment, to be able to justify next projects. You have at the plant managers, planning the resources for the immediate task at hand. Same with the plant and machine operators. So it boils down to getting access to the data. So if it's so important, why is it such a big challenge, right? Connectivity is, for most manufacturers, the major challenge, the first major challenge. And here, like I'll say it again, in mature economies, you have brownfield manufacturing plants. That's the majority. They were not designed with data capturing and sharing in mind. You have a patchwork of legacy systems that need to be networked with appropriate cybersecurity protections, because it is important. And then very often these solutions demand some creativity and workarounds, just because of like the diversity that you have in terms of machines and systems on the manufacturing floor. But what I would say is that this gaining connectivity, these are traditional areas of system integrators' expertise. They are regularly doing these type of access and connectivity to extract the data. The next step, and I'm following that roadmap from Trelleborg, is visibility. So you have now the data, so you want to get the data put into context such that it's information. From what I have seen, many digital transformation projects start with the objective to deliver OEE, which stands for Overall Equipment Effectiveness across all plants. If you have more than one plant, at least across all assets. So what you're now doing is you have a common measure. And by the way, OEE needs to be defined by you. It needs to be a definition that makes sense to you and that everybody in your plant is adhering to. Some machines are very different, like and the products that they're making is very different, but having a unified OEE definition is very valuable. And operators are provided with information to help them in their decision making. Remember that person on the machine that was straightening the steel coil? That person needs to know if that bottleneck machine is going to have to be overloaded, if it's requiring some oil changes, if this machine needs some maintenance, and maybe this was provided by some predictive algorithms of condition-based monitoring of that machine. And then that operator can determine, okay, I'm going to finish this shift, and then we're going to hold the whole production to be able to get to this maintenance requirement. And I will go back to this visibility. Visibility is something that traditional system integrators are very comfortable delivering. They have been doing that for a long time. It has, and this is not a story about technology, but such that you can visualize this. It could be an MES system, it could be a SCADA system, or very often it'll be like dashboard on a monitor at a site in the plant where the operator can use that information to make a decision. So that is, we're staying here with the traditional areas of industrial system integrator expertise. That is very important for you to be able to take advantage of the next steps in the digital transformation. So CSIA conducts periodically, we do it twice a year, a survey with JP Morgan. And we reach out to a large number of system integrators, in this case, 201 system integrators that are member of CSIA and others. And when we ask them, what are you being asked to supply today? And you can see 70% are being asked to provide connectivity, right? What we were saying before. And the second one is data visualization, right? So those are by far the number 2 areas. The third one is implementing other analytic tools to help identify trends, patterns, and correlations. So that is already the beginning of the next steps. Now you have the data, you can start implementing algorithms and help the operator, help the plant manager and the executive teams, figure out, how well or how bad we're doing. I will mention one thing that I realized after we issued this survey. Cybersecurity was not on the list of things that the participants could select from. And I regret it because cybersecurity is key. It's key when you're doing all this deployment to make sure that it's done safely. So I am sure that a lot of system integrators get engaged in that one, and that should have been part of the list. So system integrators in the digital transformation. So they provide connectivity and visibility, very traditional areas for them. They can become also a trusted advisor in the early stages of digital transformation plan development, because these system integrators are constantly involved with this type of installations. If they're brought in early while you're having the brainstorming within the end users, they can guide, very rough estimates what it would go, how much it would cost going one way or the other. Then system integrators can also supplement cross-functional teams with cost estimates and technology options, which is very much related to what I was mentioning before. And system integrators can aid in the next steps that follow, right? So now you want to deploy adaptive and intelligent systems. And once you have the organization ready for it, the system integrators will be able to help you with that too. So now, where can you find the system integrator that is right for you? I'm offering here 2 main sources for you besides a word of mouth. The CSIA has an industrial automation exchange that you see here, and so does CFE Media with a similar platform. So just check it out. This is like finding the partner that is right for you, that has the experience that you're looking for, maybe the experience by vertical, maybe the geography that you're seeking. This is all up to you. These 2 platforms allow you to do the selection. So now let me try to summarize. Digital transformation and Industry 4.0 is necessary for survival. And now more and more, it's part of what you need to do to thrive. The pandemic has now made this even more important than ever. So the transformation demands to go beyond technology. Organization and process are just as critical. Then creation and empowerment of cross-functional teams to create company-specific roadmaps prior to strategy. That has been like a proven method of getting buy-in with the first group of employees, getting it specific to your company's requirements, and then make it easier to deploy it later to the entire organization. But you will still need upper management endorsement and engagement, because you need support, you need the funding. And Here, very important, change management. Humans are not good normally when it comes to change, and sometimes you need upper management to help drive this change management. You need involvement and buy-in from the entire organization. And on this point, I would like to share, I think, a good example. A large automobile component manufacturer, they rolled out their digital transformation strategy. It was all at the level of connectivity and visibility. OEE was what they want to do. They have something like 60 plants around the world. And of course, they stretched it out over, I think, 3 years. So whenever they would go to a plant to deploy it there, they would bring an upper management representative, and that person would indicate to the team, by the way, they would take half a day off, free pizza, this type of a celebration, and explain what it was all about, that it was not to eliminate jobs, but to make the jobs better by providing them with more information. And so to ensure the buy-in of the entire organization. That to me was a good example for the rollout. Then a very important part is perseverance, because deployment will take place over an extended period. Remember what I mentioned, just to get the first 2 phases out was going to take 3 years for this large automotive component supplier. You need to not get bored by that. It's like one of those key initiatives that you got to sustain all the way through. And sometimes some approaches may not work. You need to be able to recognize that, take one step back, come up with a different approach, and continue. So bring in experts, outside experts when you need them. You know, just realize that we don't always have all the resources in-house. And so there are very good frameworks. I mentioned the one from Singapore. There are external experts to offload internal resources. So you may have the expertise in-house, but they may be fully loaded, you know, and so like you help yourself with external experts. And then system integrators can aid manufacturers in early fundamental stages of connectivity, visibility, cybersecurity. And then they are more and more system integrators are getting experts in the latter stages. So that is my presentation to you. I am very happy to answer and address questions, and you can reach me with this information. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Jose, for what was really an insightful presentation. There's no question that the profile of systems integrators have been considerably raised as central engineering departments, since some corporations have been hollowed out. And I thought that, in addition, I thought that the survey results were particularly validating as they reflected the roadmap that you had presented.
Thank you.
For our audience, we look forward to seeing you in the live Q&A session immediately following. Be sure and have your questions ready. Thanks for joining us, and we hope the information provided will suit your purposes.